everybody doing? I hope you are all doing well. I hope you all have got through this last 2 or 3 months maybe a little better than I have, a little healthier than I have, mentally and physically speaking, and I'll get to that here in a minute. I wanted to welcome you all. I'm glad you're here, glad you're watching. I think I gained a couple of new subscribers since my last vlog, which would have been right before the end of January. So just to try to keep it brief update. End of January, rolling right along with the vlogs. I actually have one sitting somewhere in the cloud that I had done for, I want to say like basically up through the end of January, maybe the first week in February. It must be leading up to the last week in January. Oh, and May has joined us, so we'll get to the cat portion of the program here in a minute as well. End of January. So that was when most of the country got hit with a pretty bad weather front that moved all the way across the United States. And we got ours, basically it was that first week of February, more or less. And that wiped me out mentally. Basically, didn't feel like vlogging, didn't feel like doing anything, being stuck in the house. This is the first time, I think, ever that the cold weather that was persistent over a long period of time really affected me. And I think part of that too is just getting older. You know, I live in a state where we don't like, here it's hot, but it's also humid, so I am not looking forward to summer. But this is the first time where the cold, and not only the cold and the dreary, the overcast, constant, no sun. We've had some really, like yesterday was a gorgeous day. It was chilly, but the sun was out, and I absolutely loved it. All that to say that basically didn't feel like putting something in front of a camera for several weeks. And it wasn't, it was just me. We all go through it. And, I had to keep reminding myself we all need breaks, and maybe February was my break this year. Especially after coming off of the holidays, vlogging every day, then trying to keep up with a weekly vlog and never taking any kind of substantial break from that. So that's kind of what I chalked it up to, honestly. I did get some crafting done. If you're new to the channel, just so you know, I not only talk about knitting, but I also talk about cross stitch. So there's going to be both of that today. Just because I'm going to talk about 3 months worth of, 2.5 months worth of stuff, that I've been working on. And so there may be some overlap with the vlogs, but also, that was May. She was pushing my little stand. But there may be some overlap with the vlogs because there are some things that I worked on January that maybe I finished, down the road. So you may see some overlap a little bit. Plus, I want to kind of catch up on everything. So, that was February. Then work kind of got busy, as it always does. So, again, just came home not wanting to film, or the end of a long work day, not wanting to film. That was all well and fine. And then, the last week in February, I don't say apparently, I've got a doctor's appointment. I haven't seen a doctor yet. But what I think happened at the time was I pinched a nerve. And the nerve, or the area that was affected, or that the problem is still kind of persistent, is right here where my shoulder meets my neck. But the problem was when it was at its most severe in the beginning, which was basically the last week of February for about 3 weeks straight. Traveled all the way down. My shoulder still hurts a little bit. Like, I'm fine when I'm moving and I'm up and around. Now I'm at the point where when I've slept and my body just kind of goes into that just kind of heavy weight, that's when I feel it the most. So, all that to say, for about 3 weeks in February, I was pretty much out of commission. I could not hold, carry, bear any kind of weight on my left hand, which meant a lot of my stitching was in like Q-snaps, and I'm talking very little weight at all. Like holding my phone would cause me to like shake really bad, and the pain essentially traveled all the way, like my shoulder, traveled down my tricep, into my elbow, and then when I had some really like intense moments, I would even feel it like all the way down into my wrist and in my hand. What's remaining lingering now is, like I said, when I wake up in the morning, first thing, it's like you're old and things don't work, you know, you're feeling kind of stiff, that kind of thing. And then also, there is some time where when I've been working a lot with my left hand, or a better, more accurate representation is like sitting in this chair here. I've actually ordered another chair for this room back here. This chair has no arms, no support. So if my left arm bears all the weight on its own and has nothing to support it, then it starts to get tired, and I start to feel, you know, I can feel lingering like pain, just ever so slight. Like I could take Advil and it'd be fine. But where my shoulder meets kind of that muscle that's where your shoulders meet, and then you have kind of that muscle, you know, right below the base of your neck. My hope is, fingers crossed, I don't have like a disc issue, like a bulge disc or anything like that. My hope is that I truly just pinched a nerve and it's just taking longer than usual to recover. Anyway, so for February, that was it. That basically took me out. I think we had, and this is, I say February, that's not entirely true. This is really like the last week in February. This mostly affected me in March. So we had a Zoom in February for the Natural World Sal, which I'll get all to my stitching and knitting here in a minute. So if you want to fast forward, I'll have like introduction cards or spacers between sections. So like if you want to skip the cross stitch portion, or if you want to skip the knitting portion, or if you want to skip this portion, there will be a card there to let you know that I'm moving on to a different subject. So anyway, gonna try to keep this brief, and it really didn't happen, did it? So I just lost all of my stitchy ability to do much of anything. So I got some stitching done in February. So by the end of February and most of March, I was out. The saving, like the craft that saved me or kept me sane, was actually knitting. And the only reason why, which ironically I didn't think was going to be, I thought it was going to give me just as much of a problem. So, as an example, if I've got my stitching in a Q-snap, even this weight, bearing this weight with my left arm, was just, I wouldn't have been able to hold it at all. But with the knitting, you know, because I'm holding it with my left arm and then I'm stitching with my right. With the knitting, I could rest my left arm on something, and whatever weight, like this shawl actually got done in March. The weight of the yarn would rest on my lap. So there was nothing bearing any weight or pulling on my arm at all. The only movement was actually just in my wrists. So it kind of saved me from myself. So, because I was just going to say I was down about it. I didn't know what I was going to do. So, anyway. So that was end of February, most of March, and then finally, I'm going to say like the week of, well, I don't have a calendar in front of me. Hold on. The week of spring, I think, which that was the week of the 20th, was that Monday or whatever. What I tried to do was pick up a small project, which I'll get to in a little while, that I actually finished. Something that I could hold in my hand, something that I could rest. If I rested my left arm and there was no discernible weight in my right hand or in my left hand, that whatever I was holding in my left hand, my arm was being supported and I could stitch. And so I actually, what ended up happening in addition to all of that was I got a couple of additional kind of tools to help me stitch. And I'll kind of explain, in addition to all of this, we have, you always hear May in the background. You don't ever hear Kip. Kip's our older cat. He turns 20 this year. And in the last, I'm going to say since probably the first of the year, he's become much more vocal, and not in, I say not in a bad way. It's annoying. I'm going to be totally honest with you. But in a way that is unnecessary. He's vocal because he wants attention, he wants something, but he's at the age where he doesn't know what he wants, and until he's determined that all of his needs have been met, he needs you to go with him to check all those things out. I could go on, but I won't. So this other issue has became an issue at the first of the year, which led to me spending more time not in here, out in the den with him, to keep him quiet, to keep him happy. He wanted me around. He wanted me. So that was the other issue, was I could never find time to come back here and record. Now he's been taking a nap, but I know he's awake because I've heard him out there messing around. But he hasn't been back here yet. So that's the other part of this equation is, if it takes me too long back here, he will interrupt and I will be interrupted, and I may or may not get back to finish recording this. So this is on a Sunday. And the other thing is, it just so happens it's a 3-day weekend for me. So I had an extra day, so I had some time this weekend that I could actually get this done. So all of that is the reason why I've kind of been absent. And that's okay. It's not that big of a deal. It's fine. It life happens, right? We all have lives and pets and kids and partners, and things just happen, and before you know it, it's first week of April's over. So anyway, so that's kind of where I am right now. I don't ever intend, or I don't intend to be away this long again, but I can't guarantee anything, just because, life gets in the way. The vlog really worked really well for me. But I was going to say, and I kind of didn't finish my train of thought, was because I'm spending more time out there with him and less time back here. When I hurt my shoulder, this chair, I realized coming back here, there's no support. It's really uncomfortable to sit in. You're probably going to see me fidget a lot because I can't really get comfortable. It's fine. But it is one of those things where I have ordered a new chair, because it is one thing that I realized I needed back here if I was going to come back here and make this my craft space again. But in the meantime, the vlog really did work for me. It worked really well because I just could record bits and pieces of how my day went. But because I'm out there more, he's more vocal than usual. I have to find time so he's not back here yelling for no good reason. All of those things have to kind of culminate and work together. So hopefully this won't, I won't be away another 3 months next time. I can't say that if the vlog thing, if I can get back to it, I'll try to do a more weekly or bi-weekly thing, but I don't even know. I don't want to guarantee anything right now. So anyway, all right. So with all that being said, thank you again for being here. Thank you to all the new people. There aren't very many, but there were a few. So thank you all for being here. I am going to, my plans are to go over all my cross stitching, what I've done over the last 3 months, go over all my knitting over the last 3 months, and then just kind of maybe go over some plans for future me to look back and laugh and go, haha, you're so funny, you never got any of that done. Because we're all like that, right? Okay, so let me take a quick break. I'm going to go get some water, and then I will be right back. Okay, so to wrap up the month of February, some of the stuff that I worked on before my issue with my arm, I wanted to kind of start off by saying I have been doing my Stitch for Pride with our Stitch Dad, these 20 Stitches. They have been putting together every month a series of actions and learning and extended learning for us to do every month, along with a day in history and a stitching prompt. So in addition to the stitching prompt being one that I wanted to do at the end of every fulfilling checking most of the boxes on Dee's little chart, I also wanted to try to include the prompt in my knitting or yarn crafts as well. So I'm going to not only reference this throughout my cross stitch section, I'm also actually going to come back and reference this during my knitting portion as well, because what I tried to do was reflect on the prompt we were given, the learning section, try to extend that beyond what Dee gave us in hopes that I could find other things to educate myself about. And then also, since part of the stitching prompt and some of the action involves contributing to or lifting up or supporting voices in the community that Dee highlights that month, I try to extend that beyond just my cross stitch into my knitting. So, or in one case, and I'll mention here in a little bit, beyond just knitting. So anyway, so yeah, so February was a great month. It was also Black History Month for us, so that was rather exciting. So throughout the month of February, I had started with the intention of challenging myself to a 2-week stitching of stitch and finish of Dee and Kari's Eat Your Heart Out. So I don't know if you can tell a little bit there. As I say, I think the window's kind of, but this is Krynic. This is 2 different colors of Krynic. The this portion, the hair of the vampire is diamant, black diamant, and then the white is a bit of I can't find it now. I think it's Threadworks, and then the rest of the black, the matte black, is actually Vamp by Leo and Roxy. And I do still have to do the face, which I think I picked a Classic Colorworks and a Leo and Roxy for the face as well. But yeah, my intention, this could have very easily been done in those 2 weeks. But I kept not hesitating. I think the diamant, so the Krynic, when I found I think I had this purpley pink Krynic. I had it. The red I did not, and I ended up ordering about 4 different colors of red Kreinik from a needlework shop down in, I think it's the Golden Needle. I think they're down in San Antonio. But I was trying to find a good color because the other red Kreinik that I had didn't look right. So this one, I'm glad I went with this one. But I had to wait on that. And then when I got to the Diamant, I don't know, y'all. Is it just me? So Dee charted this with a toile, and that's probably what I should have done. But I liked the way the Diamant looked, and I've actually used the Diamant on part of the reason why I pulled it was because I also used it on Dee and Kari's Krampus for Christmas, and I like the way it looks. I mean, I like the glossy kind of finish to it, but it is a pain in the butt to stitch with. So as you can see, I'm hung up on it, and I just need to get it done because truly this is all that's left, except, y'all, there are half stitches. And it's going to be fine. It's Aida. It's an 18 count. It's an ornament cut of, no, it's not either. No, it's not. But it is a fortnight fabric. I was going to say it's a fortnight fabric. Ornament cut. But no, it's not a cut it. It was a larger piece. And I can't remember. I think I have the card put away. But anyway. But yeah, so I've got to decide how I'm going to do half stitches with Diamant on Aida. It's not going to be pretty, y'all. It's going to be a mess, but it'll be fine. So this was kind of my first, I don't want to say took the wind out of my sails, but this was the first thing that kind of, I let myself down, which that's not fair either. Not to me, not to y'all. I mean, that's kind of what happened was I was so determined to get this finished, and just, I'm going to finish this. I mean, I'm still stitching on it, but sorry, between the hurdles and trying to pick colors and not, trying to go back and forth, and also the hurdles of wanting to do all the other things, all the other things, and then also the fact that, that thread was just giving me fits. So anyway, so it'll get done. This is just going to be, I shouldn't have challenged myself with it, but I did, and it's okay. It's fine. I wanted to have it done in time for Valentine's Day, and that just didn't happen, but it's all right. And it's truly, it's cool time of the year. And I do have, that was the other thing I think that kind of was a mental block. I knew in my mind how I wanted to finish it, and I kept looking online for where to go to get the things that I needed to finish it, and everything that I was shopping around for, the background, the fabric, and all that kind of stuff, I couldn't put it all together in my head. Well, I found something in some old, just old stuff. It's collecting dust in a closet. So I pulled it out. Not necessarily, I might end up using it for this, but it is basically what I want to work with. And so I think I'm just going to play around with it, sewing with it, to see if what the idea that I have in my head I can do. So anyway, but that we'll talk about that at a much later time. Once I finish it, we'll talk about that journey. So anyway, February, that's where I was when I started February. And like I said, I'm still working on it. I don't know how many days I gave it in February. But then by March, my arm had gone out, and so I pretty much just now started picking it back up in this last week. Got a couple of rows in the hair, and that's about it, really. Pretty much everything you see was done in February. I was going to say, I think this is like the widow's peak. I think just those 2 vertical rows are the only thing I've done in the last week or so. Everything else has been sitting since February, so it'll get done, and I'm really close. It's 75, almost 75% complete. I mean, truly, it's really close to being done. I just For some reason, I've got a mental hang up with it. But that's okay. It's perfectly fine. We all have mental blocks, and that's the way life goes, right? Okay, so in addition to that, I did continue to work on my temperature birds, but only till the first week in February. So I'm not even going to pull it all the way out. That's where I stopped. So 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, February 8th. That's where I quit. Got all my days saved. That was a different, what am I trying to say? Icon. It was like a lantern. I don't know. I just didn't want to stitch the lantern. So instead, because that very first week in February, we got that cold blast and snow, that's what I opted to do. And it's a, I think it's a Krynic. It's a thicker Krynic, but it's sparkly. I don't think y'all can tell from here. Well, maybe a little bit. And that is a snowflake from, I pulled from one of the Krampus samplers from Dean Kari. So yeah, a little bit of Dean Kari in my temperature verbs. So anyway, so that's basically kind of where I stopped. Obviously now I've got 2 months. Well, yeah, a month almost. Yeah. Sorry, my brain. 2 months to do. So, and it'll be fine. They're actually really good. But again, this was another one. I love how y'all keep watching me pull like cat hair out of my projects. Y'all like those? Like those moments? They go really quick. I just need to pull all the, and actually I have the daily temperatures like screenshot on my phone through like February, I don't know, 18th or something, like a whole nother week and a half. And then I just finally mentally just was like, okay, stop doing that. You can go back and pull it later. But yeah, they go really quick. Again, though, it was on a Q-snap. It was heavy. I couldn't hold it. So yeah, it was one of those things where I was like, okay, I'll get back to it eventually. And I will. I'll get back to it. I just need to, some of these heavier projects like this, I'm still a little bit hesitant. I actually, this is a bad example, but I'm going to show it to you anyway. A lot of my smaller projects, if I felt like I needed the fabric to be a little taut, the mini hoops are great. And particularly if I've got a size that'll work, the wooden ones are even better because the plastic ones definitely weigh. I mean, y'all, I know you're sitting here going, really? But yes, the incremental difference between a balsa wood hoop and a plastic hoop to someone who cannot bear weight on a shoulder or on an arm, it's unbelievable how much you notice just the minute difference in weight. So yeah, so when I do have projects that I can fit in a hoop, and particularly a wooden hoop that I have, I will definitely do it. And I actually am considering buying a few extra ones, like the next time I go to Michael's or Joann's or somewhere, and just buying a few extra ones in different sizes. I do finish a lot in hoops, but I like finishing in like the plastic ones, like this one that Dee's. I'm not finishing this in this hoop, but I like these because they're pretty and they're bright. But these are great for working with when yeah, weight is a factor. So, like I said, this is a bad example because it's an oval hoop, and I know I probably got this like in a clearance bin somewhere because it's like, oh, it's on clearance, I'm gonna get it. But it's definitely not one that I found a piece to stitch or finish in. But anyway, but yeah. In the meantime, just about anything that I have kitted up or started in a Q-snap has just been sitting around. It's amazing how much not only you don't think about how lightweight this seems, but how much this plastic really is heavy. And then you realize there are so many pieces of plastic that it takes to construct a Q snap. So it's been kind of I don't know, mind boggling might be the right word. So anyway, so that's as far as I got. As far as I got on my temperature birds. So then the next thing that I'll kind of, again, back to D, Fantastic D, released their first pattern of the Let's Make a Statement set that they will be releasing. And the first one was released in, or on February 10th, I think. That's when I've got it written down in my journal. That's the day I think I purchased it. It may have been released a day or two before. But that's my finish. That's my very first one. And this used a hoop. You can kind of still see a little bit of the hoop. I didn't get it ironed very well, did I? This is a blue linen that was in my stash. The threads are all silky, except for the etoile, which the etoile yellow DMC happens to be the color used in the Trans Pride Tapestry pattern. So if you are stitching it using the called for DMC, you will have it already, and it doesn't take very much just to do that little section. So, but the rest of it's all silky that I had, and it absolutely looks great. The finish is just this is 3 different. It's a white trim that has pink and blue woven into it, a blue trim, and then a pink rickrack that I braided together. And then there's just a piece of, I always keep these little cardboard inserts from like when you get stuff in the mail or whatever. So it's literally just not, obviously this isn't big enough, but a piece trimmed down inside there, and then just did the blue felt on the back just to cover up the rest of the fabric. So that was done, and these were very quick stitches. So again, this is before I hurt my arm, so I definitely got this done before then. Really happy with it. I knew I wanted to do it, finish it the way Dee had finished theirs in the picture. I liked that shape. It looks really good, and it's very easy to measure out the cardboard for it. So, it's pretty okay. My best friend would tell me, now Jennifer, that's not fair, but I'm about to say it anyway. It's very basic math. I'm a math person, so I know coming from me, that's ridiculous. But it was very basic math. If anybody has any interest on how simple, or how I think that this is a simple way to make, or the simple effort it takes to make the shape, let me know and I'll walk you through it. I don't think would be too difficult, and I'd be happy to do a tutorial too if anybody were interested in that, because Dee released their second one and I'm so happy. So I'll put that up here. I have purchased it. I have not started it yet, but I'm going to be using same colors, same fabric. Fortunately the blue I picked, I've got a big I think I've got a fat quarter of it, so I'm hoping however many are released I will be able to do most of them on it. So yeah. So yeah, if anybody does have any interest in a tutorial, I'll stitch up my second one, and then maybe we can schedule or set aside some time to record a tutorial on just how to measure it out and do it. So I'd be happy to do that. The trim, so as I mentioned, it's, I don't know, you can kind of see, this keeps blowing it out, so I'm sorry. It's 3 pieces braided. They were part of those big trim packs I think I showed a long time ago from Michaels, where like you got just a bunch of colors. So these were all part of like a pastel mix of like, you know, baby or soft, you know, yellows and greens and pinks and blues, and so they were all kind of in a set, a larger set. So I didn't have to go, you know, buy 3 separate spools. I just had the big bundle. So anyway, I know I keep showing it. It's kind of cute, isn't it? So there is that. Moving on. Oh, I am going to put a picture up here. This is the last picture I took of my, oh, I'll do both. Okay, so this is the last picture I took. Guess why not? The last picture I took of my quarter of my submission to the Most Magnificent Ink Circles Round Robin that Michelle Bendy is hosting. I'm doing Half the Fun by Tracy Horner of Ink Circles. I am using a variegated yarn, which now I can't remember what it's called. I think it's balloon something, like, yeah, or maybe just balloon, I don't know. But I was stitching, and I got, truly, thank goodness, I got almost all of it stitched before I hurt my shoulder, before I hurt my arm. So, I got really lucky. And I'm also very lucky in that I received my next members. This is the next one I have to stitch, or to stitch, the next quarter. This is Jackie's, and I will show you. This is where she finished, and I think, so mine is on an ornament cut of Fortnite fabrics. I think Jackie mentioned she's using a Fortnite fabric also. Yeah, 18 count Fortnite fabrics. Woo, blowing that out big time. But that is, there we go. That's a little bit better. So I just have to pick which corner I want to do next. And the main color is, she says, is gray. And the rainbow, so here are the colors. So gray, oof, there we go. And I'm going to go out on a limb. She didn't say what the colors, like she just says that they're gray and rainbow. But those are the 2 colors. So very, very exciting, very cool. So I'm very much looking forward to that. And now that I've received this and my arm is better, I'm very, very grateful that that all kind of timed out well. But yeah, I don't have a picture. I didn't take a picture of mine before I sent it off, so all you got to see was the last time I took a picture of it, and I think it was to post it in Discord somewhere. But if I remember, I'll put a picture up here. This is who I sent mine to, Steph, Pocket Roddy, if you know her on social media. She was my first, pass. She's the one I passed mine to first. She already got hers done, and I was like, okay, apparently you have to get that out of the way fast. And I think she said as much. Like she knew she was going to be busy for the next few weeks, so that she wanted to get it out of the way before life got busy again. And I think it was also because we had, holiday weekend this weekend or something like that. She had some time off. So it's just kind of funny. So there's basically 2 halves of mine done. So there's that. As well as in the month of February, I think I finished this stitch in January. And you're going to have to forgive me because once I got this done, I was just like, wow, you weren't even paying attention to your sewing, but whatever. This is my, yikes, my forest owls. But as you can see, my sewing, it's crooked. But it's a project bag. So I got that sewn up at the end of January. I'm keeping like all my smalls in here. So this has been my, when I go to work and I want to take something small to stitch on at lunch, if I have time to take an actual lunch and go sit and enjoy myself for a little while. And I don't say that like I don't get to take a lunch, but sometimes I don't take a lunch in the traditional sense, either like, because I'm only in the office 2 days a week, so most of the time I'm working remotely here at home. The days that I do take a lunch would either be on Tuesdays or Fridays, and this last Tuesday, I had meetings on either side of my lunch, so I really couldn't, like, I had to be like, take a lunch and come right back kind of thing. I couldn't be leisurely about it. And the Tuesday before that, we actually had a business lunch, so I had to leave the office and come back, so I couldn't do this. And usually on Fridays, it all just depends, because sometimes what I'll do is I'll work through lunch, and then get ready to head back home a little bit early to beat the traffic, and then especially on Fridays. So usually sometimes my Fridays don't always, there isn't, my lunch break is shifted, it's not, I don't take a lunch until like 1 or 2 or something, because I'm gonna get ready to go, shortly or whatever. All of that to say, all the rambling to say that, yeah, so this is nice because it's flat-ish, but it's tall and it's narrow. This fits perfectly in my backpack that I carry my laptop back and forth in. So usually what I do is I take this and I take this, which I'll show you later. This is a small project bag that I keep a pair of socks in that have kind of been working on. But anyway, they fit perfectly in the body of my laptop, in the main compartment of, or not laptop, the main compartment of my backpack, because there's a compartment in the back where my iPad, my laptop and stuff slip in separately or whatever. So they're great. But anyway, so I keep all my smalls in there, and usually I just take 2 or 3. So I've had D's in there. I've had a finish I'm going to show you here in a little bit in there. I've got another small that I've been keeping in there now. I've also got, I think I showed you, I pulled it out, but it was just because it was something I was going to work on. It's been on the list. I was going to say it's been kitted up, but it's really kind of hysterical because this is my kit. This is one of my goals on my WhipGo board, and I guess we can talk about that too interspersed in here. One of my goals on my WhipGo board was a Quirky Quaker, was the hedgehog, and so I picked this piece of Jessie's Quirky Cuts, and then this Leo and Roxy, and I've just kept it in there because I was like, well, if I ever start my Quirky Quaker goal for WhipGo, well, you're gonna see here in a minute, I kind of already met that goal. But I still leave it in there because it's a great option for if I want to work on a little hand stitch small, wherever, lunch or wherever. So we're all over the place, folks. So you're gonna have to give me a break on this one. So, yeah, so just wanted to mention again, fully finished my owls into this project bag, which was kind of nice. The other thing I started, and this was Super Bowl Sunday, was was Three Sleeping Owls by Stitchy Notty. And she had released this a while back, but because it was February, oh my goodness gracious. 2, it was Superb Owl Sunday. And 3, because I wanted something small to work on, I watch the game, but I actually don't watch the game. I watch the commercials. So literally, I am the person, hello, it is me, that turns the game on and either turns it way down low or mutes it during the actual game. And then when the commercials come on, I turn it back up so I can watch the commercials. So that's how I spend my game watching that weekend. But it was actually, if I remember correctly, it was actually a pretty good game. I mean, it was like right down to the end. And I mean, I wasn't rooting for either team, but I wasn't not rooting for either, rooting for either team to lose or anything like that. It was just, it was what it was. But yeah, I watched it for the commercials, and there were some really good ones. Couldn't tell you anything about them now. Most of the ones I could tell you that I remember from then are probably movie trailers, and we've seen enough of them now, so we know what's coming out. So yeah, so that I started Super Bowl weekend, but I know I finished it much later. Hold on, and I will tell you, because I have my journal here, because my memory is horrible, and that's how we do around here. Finished it on the 25th, so that is probably right about the time my arm started giving me problems. And I do kind of remember that, because I remember that was in the hoop that it's in was when I stitched it in. I'm almost positive. And I remember I was finishing it and realizing that my arm problem, or what I believed to be was a pinched nerve, was going to give me stitching problem. I mean, like, the effort it took me to finish that was a lot. Like, I had to take a lot of breaks. I had to take a lot of, like, set it down, walk away, do something else, a lot of Advil. And the deal was, and I don't want to belabor this the whole time, but it affected much of what I did the last few months. But it made me realize that either I had, at the time, assumed I'd pinched a nerve, but that I was gonna have to, like, wait it out, essentially. Like, most doctors will tell you there's not much you can do for a true pinched nerve. You just have to let it heal and let it subside. And it's frustrating, because it's like all you can do. And the biggest thing that helped me was alternating heat, ice and heat. That apparently really helped. And I didn't do that in the very beginning, but I did do it very soon after I realized that was something I should consider. The other thing was, they tell you lots of rest, but letting it rest is great up to a certain point. And then I realized if I don't move it, I'm just going to keep babying it and letting it continue to, like, not be. Like, it's almost like, not that I was going to let my arm atrophy, but that's what it was kind of like in my mind. That's what I was thinking. I was like, okay, if you don't use this arm, and that's where I'm at now. It's like the more I use it and the more I mean, eventually all the arm waving, I can start to feel it. I'm like, okay, you got to give it a rest. But the movement actually did help. I do remember one particular Sunday, where I needed to go to the grocery store. I just did. And so there were certain things I was like cat litter. I was like, okay, I can't carry the cat litter from the trunk of the car into the garage, but so I'm just gonna have to drive around with cat litter in my trunk, back and forth to work or whatever, and just take it as I need it. But there was a Sunday where I realized carrying groceries when I got done back and forth in the house and carrying all the stuff in and putting everything away, I realized after all of that, my arm it didn't feel like I needed a break, I needed a rest. It actually felt like, okay, we can keep going. So that was kind of interesting, was when that kind of happened. Like I said, I've still got a doctor's appointment because there is still lingering stuff, and I've just got to make sure it's nothing more serious than what I thought it was, and it's just taking its sweet time, getting done. So, but yeah, the Three Sleeping Owls basically was the last thing I really did stitch on, when I realized, there were hints of things that I tried to do in between, but that was truly the last thing that I finished that I wanted to finish, and realized, okay, this is the point where I've got to give myself a break. And just so you know, the picture, it's hanging up at work in my cubicle. So that was my Stiach along this year, Nati's Three Sleeping Owls, and Michelle Bendy's pattern. So those kind of just stay up in my cubicle. We have like carpeted cubicle walls that you can like put push pins in, and hang stuff. So that's what I have hanging up. And I kind of rotate them out with the holidays. Y'all have probably seen, if you watch my Instagram or whatever, that is, that's kind of what I do, is I rotate them based on the seasons. So, okay, so to kind of wrap things up for February, I mentioned the Stitch for Pride prompts at the beginning. So Dee recommended we stitch something by a black designer, black inspired piece, something like that. So I chose a pattern. Sorry, I'm trying to pull it because it's on a stand. This is Admiration by Shaded Stitchery, Nuri. She based this pattern off of The Color Purple, the book. And I opted to do a Leo and Roxy conversion. So those are my colors. And as you can see, there you go. It's a little bit better. Not great, but better. As I say, this light is apparently really blowing things out. There we go. That's a little bit better. I was kind of hoping I could set it up. There we go. As I say, I don't know that my left arm is that ready to be. Jeez Louise. Anyway, so, definitely worked with the greens, the purples, and the flowers. Still have a long way to go, or not a long way to go, but quite a ways to go. This was another one, started right before my arm started acting up. And this hoop is kind of interesting. I think I talked about it in like a Zoom group, but it's an adjustable wooden hoop. It's attached. The hoop itself is actually built to be mounted to this frame. I need to go and see if this company has other size hoops, because I think this is like a 10-inch or something, and I wouldn't mind something a little bit smaller, but this is fine. This was actually the perfect pattern, because this is the width of this pattern, and I think it'll come right up to the top as well. So this pattern was actually a good size. As a matter of fact, do I have it on here? This is a Fortnite fabric, linen. I wish I could remember the name of it, but I can't. I normally put the card on I'm sorry for the him and Han. Normally I put the card with my flosses, and I don't know, I must have either, I don't think I've journaled it already, but I must have done something with it. I put it away somewhere. Anyway, I really like this a lot. So the idea is, if you're stitching, I'm going to try to demonstrate this. This actually goes underneath like your thigh. So your body weight basically holds this down, and then this is in your lap, and it's adjustable. Hold on, let me see if I can do this. This little thing, it adjusts up and down. So that's basically the highest point, the lowest point. So it just kind of, right now I've got it at its lowest point just to kind of put it in place. I definitely had it much higher in order to stitch on it. But this is great for like sitting in front of the TV or whatever. But yeah, basically your thigh holds this down, holds this in place, and then this you can just adjust. And of course rotate back and forth so you can, you know, tuck your threads in, start a new thread. Yeah. But this was my contribution, or my stitching that I ended up doing for the February prompts. And this is just a little nod to Nuri herself. She's a big Star Trek fan, so she has a little commemorative pattern to Nichelle Nichols in her pattern library, which I also have. So, and I haven't stitched it yet. I almost considered making that my stitch for February, because it was a small stitch, but looking at all of Nuri's patterns, I really love the colors in this one. And the color purple, I remember reading it in school, and it's one of the few books that has left a lasting impression on me. Yeah, I was gonna say, not the movie's good, but the book is not always better, but in this case it was much better, and definitely much more profound. And I think that was just a sign of the times of when the movie was made, that some of the themes, some of the thematic elements of the book just Hollywood couldn't address those issues as well back then. I think I know they could do a better job now if they wanted to redo it, but I think that may be one of those movies that maybe they don't want to remake, because for the time the movie was a big deal. I mean, it really, really was. So, but the book is absolutely profound. If you didn't get to read it or didn't read it in school, and you've maybe wanted to, just be there's a lot of content in there that can be very triggering for a lot of people, honestly. So yeah, just be prepared, emotionally. Be emotionally ready to read it, because it's pretty. It can be a very, very tough read, but it is very good. It's very well written. So yeah. So that was my contribution to Stitch for Pride for February. Nuri, go out, Shady Stitchery, go out and look at her other. She's got some beautiful, beautiful designs, and I know she's just getting started, so she's on her way. All of her patterns have depth and meaning, and have a lot of profound, thought-provoking ideas and themes behind them. So yeah, she's definitely one to support. Definitely worth it. Okay, so that gets us into March. So for March, again, did a little Stitch for Pride stitching. This is the month where I didn't do a whole lot. This is the month that basically kind of took me out of commission. So at the beginning of every month, Christy with Pixel Pixie Cross Stitch has a Zoom for her Natural World Sal. And so I will just kind of show you a brief bit. I got part 1 done. Part 2 is basically where I'm at. When the Zoom happened in March, I got just a little bit of stuff stitched. that was at the point where I could really tell this was going to take a toll on me, and especially like this isn't a Q snap. The weight of this was just going to be absolutely too much. So I will get back to this eventually. I'm probably going to give my Q snap, this and temperature birds in particular, my Q snap projects probably another month before I get back to them. If I'm feeling up to working on these, I will, but I probably will wait the extra 30 days just to have time to go see a doctor, make sure I'm okay, there's nothing else significantly wrong, because I don't want projects that have a lot of weight to them to exacerbate or carry out the effects, the lingering effects I still have. I don't want them extending out any further than they absolutely have to. So, the other thing is too, is the reason usually why I use the Q snaps, as you can see, are usually on the project where I have, like, I'm using a full piece of fabric on them. So that's kind of the other problem is, even if I took this out of the Q snap and maybe put it on a lighter hoop, I've got a lot of fabric, I've got weight that's pulling as well. So I've got to figure out, I was going to say holding this right now is kind of killing me. I've got to figure out what to do. I did mention briefly, I had bought a couple of things to put out in the den as tools to help me stitch. One of which is it's really kind of funny. It's, if you remember the desk lamps that used to have they would have a bendable arm that would go back and forth this way, and then they would have a bendable arm that would go back and forth this way. So it's actually a stand. Instead of having a lamp attached to the end of it, it's got two different mountable pieces, one of which is a cell phone mount, so an expandable, like I clip my phone in, which is actually what I've been using it for, to put, instead of putting my phone down, like on my lap or next to me and on the table, and having to keep straining my neck down to look at it, I have it up now to where I can keep my head and my neck up and see it. But the other mount is basically, because this is made by the same company, it's a little clip. So you can clamp your stitching to it. I have not used the clamp yet for that. I mean, I have not used that arm for that. But the company also makes a pair of these. And what they are is they're designed to clamp to a table. And you have two. I don't know if I can do it right here or not where you can see it. I think the table's a little bit too low, but this is clamped to the table, and then you can clamp your project on either side to hold it still on a table for, like, here. This is why I've got them in here. And then you can stitch back and forth, but your work is being held by something other than your arm. So these are the two things that I purchased. Like I said, they're the same company. They're just different utility methods of utilization. But the mount, this piece right here, this is actually a similar design for both. So they kind of can work together, if that makes sense. I mean, they don't need to be because I bought both sets. But yeah, essentially. But yeah, so I bought these for back here. I just haven't been back here. This, like I said, this chair's uncomfortable. So sitting in this chair, even for this long, talking to you all, has been kind of an exercise. But I think it's also good because I'm forcing my posture to carry itself. So I don't think it's as bad as I realize. I might feel it later though. So back to the stitching. That's as far as I got. I had every intention of keeping up with this because that first section I got done in January and I was so happy. I was like, I'm going to keep up with this. And then my shoulder was like, no, you're not. So, But yeah, Christy does a really good job. They are in bite-sized pieces. I just haven't had the chance to get back to it. If anybody, I'll throw it out there. If anybody has any other suggestions for stitching on larger pieces of fabric with, like if you have neuropathy, like I've got one of the managers in our department at work, she's got some neuropathy in her arm. So I have had some feedback from different people about how to manage it until I get a chance to see someone and find out exactly what I've got going on. But if anybody is a stitcher that has neuropathy and has any suggestions for, it's not the size of the pattern, I should be clear, it's the fact that the size of the pattern requires a lot of weight of either fabric or fabric and hoop or Q-snap or whatever. The tools in order to stitch it require a lot of weight. And I'm hoping that between the two things that I purchased, I think those are going to help tremendously. The other part of this at this point is, like I mentioned a minute ago, my posture is, I think there's a good chance that my posture was very poor for a long period of time, and I think my age and my lack of good posture is now finally caught up with me. I'm thinking that's kind of where this is headed. So if that's the case, I just have to start doing a better job of holding myself up properly. So March. Did our Zoom. I actually got to meet Christy, Pixel Pixie, in person. Her husband had a work function up here. They live in Dripping Springs, which is outside of it's kind of a suburb of Austin. So to come here, which I live north of the DFW area, it's not a long drive, but everywhere in Texas is a drive. So it's like a 4.5 hour drive. He had a work event, so she and I met at the mall over in Frisco. And her kiddo had never been on a carousel, which they have one in the food court. So we basically sat and talked for a couple of hours while her husband was doing his work event at a hotel, or not a hotel, a eatery nearby. And just talked and chatted. And I had made her a little needle minder, which I made one for myself as well. So anyway, so I gave that to her. She was really excited about that, so that was kind of fun. And that was about the time, my arm was just in full-blown whatever mode, so we didn't get to stitch and chat, but we just, we sat around, had some Starbucks, watched the kid on the carousel, and hung out and talked, so I think she really enjoyed coming up here, even if it was just for a little bit. Most of the rest of March, I basically finished my quarter of my ink circles, because that's the one thing I knew I needed to get done, and fortunately it was a small piece of fabric, so it wasn't weight bearing. It was easy to stitch. I think I was so far along, fortunately, that I was able to do just dribs and drabs, just little sections at a time, and I got done in plenty of time. What's funny, so we're trading them every quarter, so of course the first deadline was March 31st, but I pretty much had mine done before then. I was trying to look and see if I could tell in my journal. I got mine done on the 15th. So basically it sat here the rest of the time. I mailed mine out on the 31st, which I think was a Friday. Yeah. So I don't know. I think I was waiting around to the week of the 31st, because I didn't want to mail it out any sooner. We had a little bit of a team change up, which was fine. Didn't affect anything. Kind of bummed that the person that dropped out, but that's okay. I completely understand. Life gets in the way, or you get busy, or you have other things. So the person that was replacing my first swap person, Since they were since they were replacing someone, I didn't want to drop it in the mail too quickly, and I didn't want them to feel rushed. But I figured the last week, was fine, and the last day was even better. But fortunately, I think I mailed it that Friday, and they got it like the following Monday. I mean, it went really quick, so she got it really quickly, so I'm happy about that. So the next thing was that I stitched and finished, again, another small, so March the 13th is my best friend here in Dallas, her birthday, and because Michelle Bendy Stitchy and Erin Two Martini Stitcher and several other people have March birthdays, they always do a Quirky Quaker birthday sal. And because I have a best friend who has a March birthday, I opted to stitch this. So this is Quirky Quaker Seahorse. I actually got it from Deanna. It was part of actually a kit that was, who is this? Oh my gosh, I can't even think of the name of the company now. But anyways, it was a kit. It was basically her pattern, the, whatever this is, I can't think of what this is, this little floss keeper thing. And then I think we got a, see that little seahorse right there? That's a needle minder. I think we got that too, I think. But anyway, so that's what I stitched. And again, quick stitch, lightweight, small, something I could hold in my hand. I did stitch this in hand. I did not use a hoop or anything like that. It is a Fortnite fabric ornament cut. And my plan is, so there are actually two mirror images. My plan is to stitch the other one facing the other way in the opposite color. So basically the horse and the fish are in blue, and the frame is in the coral color. And these, I think, were in the subscription for that month. So these are Roxy Floss Co. This is Let It Be. So it's like a real, like, steely gray blue. And this is Garden Party. Real pretty, kind of peachy corally color. So that's what I ended up using. So I'm going to stitch one more. And I posted it on Instagram, but I'll mention it here. The reason for the seahorse, not that my friend is, she is, don't get me wrong, she is a beachy kind of person. She loves traveling to places that have water, and but the seahorse isn't necessarily a significant creature, or animal for her, but it occurred to me that this year would have been this coming December would be 10 years since we took our first trip together as friends. And that's always, for anybody who's ever done that, taking a trip with a friend for the first time, and you never really know. You don't know if the person's going to be neat or messy, if they're going to make, if they're going to be I don't want to say high strung, but just constantly wanting to go and do, or if they're going to be real chill and just, kind of go with the flow. But the first trip we ever took, she and I and two other friends went. I had rented a condo that we split in Port Aransas, down at the Gulf here in Texas. Now, this is the Gulf in Texas in December. So instead of it being bright, sunshiny, and hot, and, me getting the worst sunburn of my life, it was cold or coldish, but, humid, damp, dreary. The sun might have come out maybe 1 or 2 days, but it's it's winter. But yeah, so that's what I decided to choose to do, to commemorate that trip, and then also her birthday. So I've still got the other one to do, so that's why I'm kind of keeping all this together, just until I get the other one stitched. So yeah, I was really excited to finish that. And that one pretty much happened, I think, in a day, maybe a day and a half. You know, these always go really quick, and they can be pretty, addictive isn't the right word. They're just the kind of stitch that you need to motivate you. They're very motivating to want to either stitch another one or stitch something, you know, get started on something else. So, and this was a good, like I said, a good kind of way for me to get my stitchy bug back a little bit, again, without all the weight on my arms. So I was very happy to finish that. So in addition to that, then, I'm not going to show, this video would be probably another hour longer if I showed all the stuff I got in the mail, all of my investments that I received over the last few months, but I will just kind of mention about that same time the X Stitch the Rainbow Tea Time stuff came out, so I have all of it kitted up back there somewhere in a bag. I didn't get all the patterns, but I got the silks, and I think I got a little less than half the patterns, but I did get, hold on a second, I'll show this one thing because this was genius. Amanda May of Ardith Designs did a book, and in this book is every page a tracking page for every tea time pattern that came out, and this was fantastic. So I went through and I wrote all of my basically pattern, wrote the pattern I received, the designer, and then I will fill these out as I go along. So this one, I actually put Jan's in here because it is like a full-sized, most of the rest of them you get are like, you know, like that seahorse chart, you know, it's much smaller, but Jan's was full-size, so I went ahead and tucked it in here. But in addition to that, the first couple of pages, she gives you all the thread information, people to follow, but then she also gave us a page of all the patterns. So everything in pink with a pink check mark I purchased, and everything with a green heart is something I want to get. But all the designers, you know, what their names are, what their Instagram handles are. I mean, it's just absolutely fantastic, and you know, enough room for all of the patterns to go in here. So that was definitely one of my purchases. So I am keeping track of it. I would like to get started on one of those, and they're all smalls as well. I actually pulled not all the patterns I have, but a lot of the patterns I have. I pulled a bunch of the ornament cuts for colors that seem to match the cover photo. You know, like if this is kind of a taupey, you know, brown color, then I try to pull, you know, something that I thought would match the colors that were stitched on in the finished photographs. So I've got them all tucked in with the patterns. I think what I'm going to do though is I know I want to get through the entire silk pack and use as much of it as I can. But in my head, I'm trying to decide, and I think this is what I've told myself. I've made my mind up about this. I'm going to go with the silks I've got. I've unwound them. I've put them on a thread keep. And I've got them all ready to go. I think I'm just going to go through and stitch as much as I can. And then at the point at which I'm on the next pattern and I don't think I have enough to finish, that is the point in which I will make the decision. Do I want to color convert, like stitch as much as I can and then pull, try to be as mindful about stitching as much as I can, and then pull DMC conversions or something for the remainder? Do I want to go ahead and then order a second silk pack and keep going? By then, hopefully I'll know whether or not I like stitching with those silks or not, you know, or on the fabrics, I guess, that silk with the fabrics I pulled. But that's what I think I decided. In the beginning, when I was kitting all this up, I kind of hesitated that maybe I wanted to order at least one more silk pack because of all the patterns. I knew I wasn't going to be able to stitch them all, but I thought, no, just wait. I mean, I think my fear is that there won't be any more, and I don't think that's going to be the case. I mean, I think eventually, yeah, there won't be any more, but I think right now I shouldn't be worried about that, because there will always be floss. You know, there will always be, or I shouldn't say there will always be, I should say I've got plenty of floss to stitch with. So, you know, there's no harm in color converting or finding, you know, closest DMC equivalents or whatever. So I think that's what I've told myself, is just don't worry about that right now. Just stitch the ones you want to stitch. And I kind of did put them in order of, like the first one in here is the one I want to stitch first, and then the next one, and then the next one, and then the next one. So hopefully that's how this kind of plays out. And this will be a great addendum to my journal, because this will help me keep my journal kind of, you know, keep everything organized for future me's sake. So I did get that in the month of March, and like I said, I kitted up all my stuff. It was something that I could do. It was stitchy related, but I wasn't stitching, so that actually worked really well. And then, as a little life aside, we got a robot litter box. So, my husband finally broke down, and part of the reason why was because of this arm. Having two cats, having multiple litter boxes for two cats is a lot, but it's something you have to do because you can't. They always need a clean space to go. Well, when this arm thing happened, it was really obvious. And I'm laughing about this because it's funny. It has to be funny. It was really obvious that we were getting older. And cleaning out those litter boxes is a lot. And so, yeah, he broke down and bought one. It's one of the ones that looks like a giant kind of front-facing fishbowl. And there are steps up for our older cat so he can get into it easily without having to jump in and jump out. It basically, they climb in, they do their business, they climb out. It waits a certain amount of time based on, you know, a set parameter that you tell it, whether it's 5 minutes or 15 minutes or whatever. And then it rotates and takes all of the non-used litter and stores it somewhere, dumps the used portion into a reservoir, you know, underneath it, and then rotates back and puts all the clean litter, leftover litter, back in the thing. So basically it scoops the litter for you. So we got that. It's been interesting. That thing, we've, up until about a week ago, we pretty much just left it off, and would turn it on occasionally to let it cycle, but they weren't using it enough. They were going in, sniffing it, checking it out, but they kept setting it off because they weren't using it. They were just going in to look and see what it was going on. So they're now both using it. Not all the time. We still have an extra one, because, like I said, he's older. It's kind of difficult for him to get in and out of it. So he needs a safe place to go. Plus, she's not quite so sure about it either. I'm pretty sure she thinks it's going to be an alien abduction or something every time she climbs in the thing, because she doesn't know about it, man. But anyway, so we got that. So that's been kind of interesting. It's got an app. Every time a cat gets in or out, it tells you how much the cat weighs. It has all of these other features like a night light, you know, all of these other things. So it's been really great so far. And, you know, it cuts down on the smell, cuts down on the waste retrieval. So just so you kind of understand, it gravity basically dumps all of the waste into a, retaining drawer below, and then as it rotates back around, puts the litter back in, that hole of course gets covered up by the drum. So there's basically just a slide out drawer, and you line it with a plastic like trash bag, you know. So you just take out the bag, cinch it up, put it in a new bag, slide the drawer back in, and you're good to go. So we've had it probably 3 weeks now. Like I said, they haven't been using it 3 weeks. They've maybe been using it a week. But there was, so they tell you if they're kind of skeptical to put like old litter. That's why we have the other litter box also, to take old used litter and put it in there so it smells like someone's used it. So there have been a couple of cycles of old waste that have been down in there. But yeah, basically this weekend was the first weekend I cleaned it out, and I couldn't believe, I was like, man, what technology does for us nowadays is great. So that's kind of a little, if you're ever interested, they're pricey. I was going to say probably the price, though, for us is the price of not having our backs go out at 50 when we turn 50, because we can't bend over and clean out, stinky nonsense one more time from scooping out a litter box. So if it saves us some back and shoulder problems and knee problems and hip problems and whatever, it was worth it. So, but it's actually been working really, really, really well. So if you've ever been in the market and thinking about it, but you knew the cost was a lot, just save your money, save it up. So my husband ended up, he's a truck driver, so he ended up using like a bonus that he got to pay for it. So that's why we ended up doing it now. But yeah, so that was actually really exciting. I know y'all didn't need to hear all that because it's cat waste talk, but it was an interesting part of what's been going on in my life since I haven't been stitching. So other than that, we're getting to the last weeks of March, so we're getting close to the end of my stitching portion of my program. This is going to be a long one, folks, so I hope if you need a break, go take one and come right back. So, as I mentioned a long time ago, earlier in the program, spring, the week of spring, was about the time that my arms started feeling better. So, also about that time, Marroomy Crafts, Marroomy Designs, Miriam, around Instagram, released her Song of Nowruz, Believe in Spring, Start Again, Bloom. It's a Rumi quote. And she released this. I so very much wanted to stitch it. I wanted to start it on spring. She was trying to host a stitch along, because this is a very small pattern. I mean, it's a lot of stitches, but it's not a lot of stitches, honestly. She charted it as like a solid red, and these were my March colors from Leo and Roxy, which I'll get to here in a minute. But because I had received this red, I did want to pay tribute a little bit to her original design that was meant to be monochromatic, so that's why I did the border in red. But the other two, so hopefully you can tell, this is like a pale kind of mint green color. This is again another Fortnite Fabrics ornament cut, 18 count. And the purple, so these are Leo and Roxy colors. The purple is Figure of Speech. The pale kind of lavender purple, lilac purple is Pedal to the Metal. Oh my gosh. I had it and then I lost it, but I got it back. And then the red is just Tart. And that was the only thing I used the red for, was just for the border. So it's absolutely adorable. It's really, really pretty. And the birds. So I mentioned when I posted this on Instagram, I didn't want to go on a whole diatribe, but since you're here, I'll tell you. This has multiple meanings for me, this year in particular. One was, of course, spring in and of itself. It's obvious that whether you believe, regardless of your beliefs, let's put it that way, spring is an important function and important moment within the calendar. It's a sign of renewal, rebirth, starting again, that kind of thing. So what was poignant for me was this was the first thing that I picked up when my arm started feeling better. So the start again meant something to me. So this was like my first finish after my nerve pain was starting to dissipate. So yes, very, very, very apropos. But also, as I mentioned before, the fact that this winter got to me more than what most winters have. I think it's the seasonal thing had never bothered me until this year, and I think it's just because I'm getting older. My body needs different things. It's a different time in my life. So I think the overcast, it looks like the sun's out. It really is kind of overcast outside. It's partly cloudy, as they like to call it. Keeps coming and going, but we're supposed to get more like weather. And I don't mind the weather. I don't mind the rain, because with the rain comes the green and whatever. But I don't when it's persistent, when we have just constant lack of sun. I can tell now it affects me more than it used to. So this pattern, but also her choice in quote, it all meant so much more to me than just stitching a pattern because it's pretty and because Miriam is just the best. So anyway, that's why I'm so happy I got that pattern done. So then, leading up to the end of March was the beginning of Ramadan. And I will talk a little bit about, or I'll talk a bit more about Ramadan a little bit later, because there's some yarn related stuff that will contribute to that as well. Oh, and before I forget, so for March, for Dee's Stitch for Pride, this was my Stitch for Pride piece. Abby Bella Stitch, also a while back, created the hashtag Stitch for Asia for March. This is my Stitch for Asia piece. And that was Dee's prompt as well, to find either an Asian designer or, Asian designed pattern to stitch on. So that was this basically was my contribution for the month of March. But I did also, all of Dee's prompts were in relation to the Asian American community, or Asian community in general, at large, and their learning about their hurdles and their extra challenges with being part of the LGBTQIA+, 2S+ community. So yes, that was very, very, very informative, very, a lot of good education and knowledge gained out of the month of March. In addition to that, the very last day of March, the 31st, was the Trans Day of Visibility. That was a great day. Everybody who participated either shared or supported or educated themselves about trans people, donated or uplifted or contributed to organizations and individual folks who needed it. So I still have things coming in the mail, but I did do a lot of support, just spreading the word, getting the word out there. But one of the things that has already arrived, they're so happy about it, can't wait to wear it. If you're familiar with El Duran on Instagram, they have t-shirts that you can buy that not only go towards their own healthcare and needs, but also support another Black trans-led organization called For the Girls, that they have been trying to raise money for. They are an organization that provides funds to other Black trans folks who need assistance in any kind of way. If they need help paying their rent that month, if they need help buying groceries that month, if they need to get to the doctor that month, if they need fuel to put in their car that month, if they need, to pay for their, whatever it is, they basically try to, and I know the rent one is a big one because that's what their current fundraiser is to refill the account that they use to give out. I think they do 5 rent donations, 5 to 5 folks every month to help them with their rent. And so that account has to cover 5 people a month over the course of 12 months, over the course of a year after year after year. So I think right now they are trying to replenish that account, so that way they can continue to offer that, provide that money to the people who need it. And so that was what they were trying to raise money for. But anyway, so Elle always has great reels on Instagram, very uplifting, very inspirational is the word. But yes, I bought this one. I bought a couple of others, so as I get them, I'll show them to you guys. This one, by the way, if you don't recognize it already, if you watch Michelle Bendy Stitchy, I think she had it on, was wearing it in a previous floss tube, and I want to get the name of the person correct. Brandon Kyle Goodman. So, that was another t-shirt design that he had available, like he had in his shop. He's got a bunch of really nice t-shirts for sale, but Michelle wanted to wear it, I think, to Nashville. I don't think she got it in time, but anyway, so yeah, that will probably sit on my sewing mannequin for a while anyway, as a gentle reminder to all of you, my positions on a lot of things. And that is pretty much the end of March. So, didn't do a whole lot in April. I mean, it's only been like a week, but I'll just go over briefly. So I finished, like, that first weekend in April, finished, a week ago, finished my Song of Noruz, had another Natural World Zoom with with Christy and them. It went really well, didn't get a whole lot stitched, actually. If I'm totally honest, I think I finished this. during that Zoom. I knew I still couldn't hold that Q-snap, And actually, I will get into it in my knitting portion, but there is a knitting project that I told myself that if I was going to have a long-term issue, but I knew I could knit, there was a project that I picked to actually knit during those Zooms. I don't know that I'll make all of them, but I've made the first few. I mean, far in the year. And then also, that first weekend in April was Becca Elaine's birthday. If you follow Elaine's stuff on Instagram, she does the Beck's Cat Kingdom Sal every April. Last April, I went all out, and I think I did a small a week to celebrate. But I did get this one done. If you do any Patreon memberships, Stitch Sprout is one of the ones that I do. So they had this cute little, it's called Spring Calico. As I mentioned before, these are the little hoops I like to finish. This isn't the hoop I stitched it in. It was actually I think this is like a 5-inch, and I think I stitched it in a 6-inch just so I had enough. But again, it was a small, and it was a lightweight, I think, hoop. Wood hoop that I stitched it in, because this is definitely heavier, but of course also because all the fabric and felt and everything else. So, and this was the called for DMC. Really cute. I love those little pink toes. So yeah, so I did do that. Oh, and this is an ornament cut that I think I bought back when Fire Poppies was still kind of my online needlework shop. It's just an antique white Joblin, 32 count, I'm almost positive. And the call for DMCs, and it's only like, what is it, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, like 8 colors or something. So really, I mean, really truly, and you could do this whatever color you wanted. I mean, kitty cat, match the kitty cat to your kitty cat, do the butterflies and the flower, do the different greens. I mean, truly. This is very adaptable to just about anything, but the DMC was nice just to stick with, something that's cute. And the little bow tie, or the little bow, really, really cute. So, and that was pretty much it. The only other thing is, I will mention, I kind of just briefly started this. So my original plan was, back before the shoulder times, I do not want to mispronounce this organization. So I think what I'm going to do is okay, hopefully y'all can see this. They are, I believe, Palestinian. They have this free stitch along. All 5 parts are out now. They released a part every Friday. Leading up to, and of course overlapping with Ramadan. And I wanted to do the same, only because they were releasing the parts every Friday, which I knew would begin once Ramadan began. And because I purchased Hawari Bazaar's 5-week Ramadan yarn kit, which we'll get to in the next little portion here. I thought combining these two things would be a good way to represent, or have more representation in my stitching. Unfortunately, though, this all happened. So this kind of got put by the wayside until my arm felt better. So I really, truly just started stitching this past Friday. So we're on week 3 of Ramadan, and I'm just now getting started on this. But I will get it done. Just slow and steady. The other kind of really sweet, I don't know if you paid attention to the picture. It's a moon and a star, and a bunch of stars, and then the border or whatever, and then the moon and the star have traditional Palestinian designs in them. And I think these are traditional Palestinian colors, so I wanted to be sure that I stuck with the original DMC on this, for purposes of not misrepresenting anything in any way. But because it's a moon and stars, I know people talk about, and I firmly believe this, that sometimes you watch, or watch television or whatever, watch a movie while you're stitching or knitting, and those memories of those programs end up being stitched into your pieces. Well, the final season of Picard on Paramount Plus has been on, and I've been watching it, and there's just something about stitching on stars while watching Star Trek. It's I don't know, it makes my little geek heart happy for some reason, but those are the memories I'm going to have stitched into this, are watching the final season. And the reason why, so it's the final season of Picard, and I love Star Trek The Next Generation and blah, 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 but this final season, it has all of the original cast members back. Riker's back, and LaForge is back, and Data is back, and Deanna Troy is back, and yeah, so they're all back. Dr. Crusher is back, so that's really, I think, more so why I'm so happy those memories are stitched into this, is because it was just kind of nice watching a season of all the people that I grew up watching on TV in like junior high. Something that I enjoyed watching with my friends, as a kid. And so, yeah, so that kind of means a whole lot to me. That piece will have a little bit more significance to me then, and intentionality as well, because of the learning about and being mindful of those who celebrate Ramadan. In addition to this past week being Passover, this weekend being Easter for those who celebrate, the fact that spring is now here. So it's just nice to have all of those additional cultures and backgrounds and belief systems, brought into your life in some way, just as a way to be thankful for all of humanity, present here. So that is pretty much it. So I'm going to take a quick break. Guys, this is going to be a really long one. I'm looking at this particular section and how long I've talked. Hopefully the yarn one, I hope the yarn one will go quick. I knit a lot, but on very few things, because knitting takes time. So let me take another quick break really quick, grab another drink of water, and we'll wrap things up a little bit. Okay, I'm back. Alright, so this is the yarn portion of the program. So if you're not a knitter, or crocheter, or spinner, or weaver, or any of those lovely things, I understand. This is kind of a wrap-up of everything that I worked on during the first 3 months of the year. Actually, I pulled one thing, but I realized I kind of need to go back a little bit further. This is technically the first thing, if I were going in chronological order. So, if any of y'all have been following along with my yarn crafts, you may know that, or may not know, so I'll tell you again. I have, so when you're a knitter, a crocheter, a weaver, any of that kind of thing, if you're a yarn aficionado, when you get done with projects, a lot of times, you have yarn left over. Most projects tell you the amount of yarn you need only to make sure that you have enough to get you there, to get you done. So, a couple of years ago, I'm not going to pull it out, it's not worth it. You might be able to find out one of my old vlogs or something. I had found a really cute knit blanket that was meant to use up scraps, called the Northeasterly. Some of you who knit or crochet or whatever may know about it. It's basically long strips of chevrons of like 14, well, technically I think 28, like back and forth rows, you know, that you break up. Basically, you use your scraps, so you alternate colors. That was my plan for that blanket. However, it doesn't really eat up the yarn quite as quickly as I'd like, and I think that's not to say that the blanket doesn't eat up yarn. It's to say that my decision in how I was going to use up my scraps was not moving as quickly as I would have liked. So, I had decided, oh, we have a visitor. That's Kip. Okay, so we're going to take a quick break. Hi, baby. This is what I'm talking about. When he finds out I am not where I need to be, he gets very, very vocal. And he may or may not need something. I may have to record the rest of this at a different time. I may have to record this later. Gotta see what he wants. Okay, so we will be back. Okay, we're gonna keep going. He kind of came in, said hi, sniffed around, and left. So we're gonna kind of keep going. Okay, so my Northeasterly was not getting rid of my scraps quickly enough as I would have liked. And it truly is. It's nothing wrong with the pattern. Scraps are great. Actually, I think the Northeasterly might be a better blanket if you wanted to plan your colors. You know, like you had picked certain colors and you were, yeah. So I really truly wanted a scrappy something. So I don't remember how I exactly got to this point. I'm sorry, y'all. This lamp keeps blowing out. So I'm going to try to hopefully, maybe that's better. See, I worry because I need the light for the color, but okay, maybe that'll work. I don't know. Anyway, so I wanted a truly scrappy blanket because I've got a lot of those balls of yarn left from projects, and I keep knitting projects and I keep coming up with more balls of yarn. So, I don't know, somehow I got it in my head that I wanted a scrappy blanket. I keep seeing other people doing scrappy blankets. So this started at the beginning of, or not the beginning, at the end of January, the very beginning of February. And this truly is a scrappy blanket. It is a, if you're familiar, it is a corner-to-corner blanket, which a lot of people design to be like Graphgans. So like they'll have like a picture, like a lot of them are like Super Mario Brothers or Minecraft because they're pixelated, so they're meant to be like little squares, kind of like cross-stitch. But I truly, truly just wanted to use up my scraps. So I'm going to show you. I'm pretty far along. But again, it's a corner to corner. So I'm crocheting this at the diagonal, but I'll try to hold it up in a way that you can kind of tell. And also not lose my stitch. I'm going to pull that stitch out so I can set my hook down. Okay. It's big, y'all. So this is my scrappy blanket so far. Yay! So I am holding two fingering weight, because a lot of my projects are fingering weight threads. 2 fingering weight threads together. So 2 at a time. So like this latest is 2, well, was 2 kinds of green, kind of created like this lemon lime stripe, but I ran out of one of the greens, so I switched over to a gray. Basically, let me find this was my starting point. So I started in this corner and worked my way up. And then once I got to the point that I was getting good stripes, I had enough yarn for for stripes. What I'm trying to do is alternate, so hold 2 colors together either till I run out or until I get 2 complete rows. Then, like here, if I can find a spot here. So this is the brown with the pinky green color. I dropped the brown, kept the pinky green, picked up the dark green. When I got my 2 rows in, dropped the pinky green, kept the other green, and brought in the purple. Dropped the green after I got 2 rows in, kept the purple, brought in some kind of, other. So basically I'm alternating, so there's 4 rows of a color, but I alternate every other color. And so far, it's big. It's nice. It's, again, with my shoulder, I've been able to work on this the whole time because the weight is held by my lap. The only thing I have to hold on to is this little bit that I'm working on, and it's all in my wrist. It's not a movement that requires, using my whole arm. So I was able to work on this the whole time. So this blanket has been work that I have done since the end of January. And I will keep going. I've still got quite a few colors in here. And I don't care how scrappy it looks. It's about at the width I want, maybe a little bit wider. You can't even see it all. See, there's one end. I really haven't even gotten to another end yet but it's pretty close to the width that I want. And it'll just be something that'll be on the couch while we're watching TV or whatever. Yeah, it's been absolutely great. So this was the scrappy blanket I was looking for. It's been great. All I did was I found I think it's the Make and Do crew on, like, they have a blog, and I think all of their patterns, are all crochet. Typically with bloggers, yarn craft bloggers, they are either crochet or they are knit. Most of them don't overlap. There's a couple, like TL Yarn Crafts Tony, I think she does crochet and Tunisian crochet, and she might do a little bit of knitting, but hers is primarily crochet. So I think Make and Do Crew is also. But I just honestly Googled, they're called Corner to Corner or C2C, like number 2, C2C blankets, and just found a tutorial on a beginner tutorial on a blanket. And all I'm doing is keeping my little yarn scraps. It's this green, and actually it's this gray down here, those 2 are the 2 that I'm using currently. And I keep them in this just to kind of keep them under control. Like, I zip up the zip most of the way, and then this way as I pull on them, they just come out of the bag. But then I keep all of my entire blanket and everything in this big tote bag, and keep this over by the couch. And so when I'm watching TV or just especially when I need a break from my, either my stitching or even the knitting tends to get more cumbersome on my arms sometimes, especially if I'm at a point where I've just started a project, so all the weight is still in my hands. It hasn't transferred to my lap yet. That's always a good project for me to pick up, just to kind of, especially mindless crochet is very, very easy for me to just pick up and not have to worry about. So that's what I started at the end of January, and I pretty much, like I said, worked on that this entire time, and I'm still working on it. So you might see it occasionally. I might pull it out. February, again, as I mentioned previously, I'm going to be mentioning this again, because when Dee gave us this in the beginning. It was always you do your learning, your action first, and then your stitching prompt at the end. January is really the only month that I didn't do the stitching prompt, simply because January is really busy, and the education is always so much more important and the action than the stitching. The stitching is kind of your sticker, your treat at the end of doing your learning. So January, basically, I didn't worry so much about the stitching prompt. I was more concerned about being present in the education. But February, the stitching prompt was a black designer or a black inspired, stitch. Well, I mentioned I chose Admiration by Nuri, Shaded Stitchery, but I also mentioned I was going to attempt as often as I could to apply Dee's stitching prompt to my yarn crafts as well. So, having said that, as you may have noticed, the shawl is gone because that was my February make. So, and actually probably a little bit into March, but mostly February. So this is a shawl, and it is huge. Shawl by Tiff Nealon. It's called the Sun and Soul Wrap, and I think the name had more to do with the colors Tiff chose more than the knitting pattern. But this was an absolutely gorgeous and fun make. So in addition to Dee's prompt, the Black Knitter was also doing a Black History Month make-along where, and I didn't Black Knitter, forgive me, I cannot think of her name, so I'm going to refer to her as that because that's her Instagram handle and her YouTube channel. You should really go check her out. She's an educator, I believe in Ohio, but she teaches like at the college level, is very informative. She did Kwanzaa, a brief introduction to Kwanzaa last year around the holidays. It was absolutely incredible. I mean, she kind of explained, the history of it and the beginnings of it and the meaning behind it and stuff. It was absolutely fantastic. But anyway, back to February was Black History Month. She was doing a make-along where either picked a pattern by a black designer, you picked a yarn by a black maker, or if your notion, like your the bag you kept your knitting project in was by a black maker, if you posted it using I think it was called the Black History Month MAL, M-A-L, or K-A-L, knit along, but I think it was M-A-L because I think she was going to let like crocheters and stuff too, so make along. If you contributed your make to it, she was like at the end going to randomly draw contributions, people who made contributions to the make along for prizes like yarn and bags and notions, stuff like that. But I did not do that. But this definitely would have worked because not only was this Tiff Nealon, the designer, she's a black knitwear designer. The yarn, this yarn right here, which I also have left over to put in my scrappy blanket here, is by the one and only knitting nurse, Jasmine. So that was my contribution. My other contribution to Stitch for Pride was basically I knit a shawl by a black knitter designer and using a black yarn dyer. And so the way this shawl, I'm not going to go into too many details. If you want to know more, let me know and I'll tell you. But basically it is This is Jasmine's yarn held double. And if I had thought about it, I love this so much. Wouldn't change a thing. But if I thought about it more, I had two of Jasmine's skeins, and it's held double. So she dyed her skeins, I'm sure, all in the same like bath. So when I wound them and held them double, basically they held like true. Like the yellows held together, the pinks held together. So I got a lot more like generous pooling than if maybe I had reversed the skeins. So there was a lot more like change. But anyway, so this is Jasmine's, two of her skeins held double. Then the pattern, basically what you do is you alternate. You change holding double. So the second section I held actually just a skein of bare yarn. So that's why there's such a less obvious change. Then the third skein I had, or the third and the fourth, honestly, the third skein I had held double with the bare. So you drop, your first color, you hold on to your second, you add a third. This was an old like Yarn Crush, or I'm going to say Yarn Crush subscription box yarn or something. But I only had one skein of it, so I thought it looked really good. It reminded me of like Strawberry Lemonade at like Sonic. But very springy. So then you drop your second color, you hold your third, and I think you double up your third color with itself. So that's what you're seeing kind of next. And then you drop one of those held together, and then go back and pick up, hold double your first color. And then your fourth color, you actually hold double with itself. And that's how you get the picot, just the bright, or the solid pop, but the picot edge. So, and I've worn this already twice to work on cold days, but it's so spring colored. I mean, just absolutely fabulous. And this was a great pattern, y'all. Absolutely easy to follow, very straightforward, very quick knit because it's all garter, except for, oops, sorry, that's the back. It's all either garter or slip stitch. So you either have this garter back and forth, or you have this slip stitch back and forth. So that's the only time you really have to purl. There's another slip stitch section right there, except for the the center kind of, it's off center. I mean, it's an asymmetrical, but it is the center line up the center of your shawl. And then the last bit is garter, and then the picot edge is really, really easy to do. So this went really super quick. And because of the colors, I mean, and Jasmine's yarn, y'all, oh my gosh. I ordered these two, and then another one with it, which I got a single of it. I've since ordered more of her yarn. I just absolutely love it. I'm so thrilled with it. This was a Candy Hearts inspired, the Conversation Hearts inspired. But I think it looks good like with like Peeps candy, Easter candy too. So this is absolutely, I love it. And I think I remember Jasmine saying she was considering re-dyeing some of her colors again. I hope maybe this is one of them, so maybe y'all can get your hands on some of it. But it's absolutely super squishy. But yeah, I love this shawl so much. I will continue to wear it. I do have plans to make at least one more of these, probably two more. I'd like to make one more like neutral, either neutral or like more fall muted colors. To wear, a neutral one would be really nice though, just like either different grays or grays and browns or something like that. But absolutely fantastic. And super squishy because it's fingering held double, so super warm. And yeah, absolutely fantastic. So that was my February choice basically for working on something to kind of pair with Stitch for Pride. It gave me a good opportunity, I will say that. The Stitch for Pride gave me basically a good opportunity to to expand my crafts and expand my ability to contribute to, you know, those people in different communities, maybe, you know, bring them to the forefront, shine a light on how great of a designer or how great of a yarn dyer they are, you know, that kind of thing. So that was February. March. So March's prompt was, as I mentioned, I stitched Miriam's spring Song of No Ruse, but again wanted to knit or crochet or, you know, whatever, do something yarn related that was also by the Asian community. So you may have seen me sitting here wearing a knit. This is, so I'll stand up here in a minute. When I had previously up here on my mannequin, I had Jessie made her little secret crop, and this is my first one that I finished way back when. This is not the one I knit in March. I had actually knit this last year. But I had mentioned this was using Fangirl Fibers minis. But I had mentioned that this fit like a glove, but I am not, or I shouldn't say I'm not, but I was very careful about wearing this because this is a crop top. And I don't exactly, you know, everybody is different, has a different comfortable, you know, comfortability, is that a word? With their body and what they wear to, you know, highlight or hide or accentuate or whatever you choose to do with it. So I'm of the mindset of like, oh, this is really cute, but one, it's a crop top, so that means it's like truly like summer. Two, it's not something like, you know, work appropriate, unless, I think I mentioned when I previously knit it, that I would have to wear like a cardigan. I mean, it's totally cute. See, it's totally cute, totally wearable. But it would have to be, you know, you wouldn't want to wear it sleeveless. It wouldn't be very, you know, or let me reframe the conversation here. I would not want to wear this sleeveless to work. And it's like, you know, straps down to basically where your, if you're someone who wears a bra, where the height of your bra back strap would be. But totally cute with a hoodie, with a, like I said, a cardigan. But because this is a crop top, this would come only to here. You know, right below my chest. And that's definitely something that I obviously wanted more length. So, same exact design, only I added an additional probably 2.5 inches to the bottom. So this sits at like my natural waist, like at my navel, whereas this, as you can see, would have sat right above my tummy. And it was just, like I said, if I wore a hoodie over it and zipped it up, you'd never see it. It'd be fine. But if I wanted to wear it, you know, completely as a top, this tank length works much better. The other part is this, I think, is about where this one would sit. Again, it completely covers up my cleavage. Where my cleavage is like down here. It completely covers it up. This one does. But this is a higher neckline, so I don't feel like I have to worry about cleavage as much. Which means the straps I had to probably do maybe 2 inches less of the straps. But everything else about it is exactly the same. The only thing I would change, if I were to do it again, I might, if I did another tank, because I like this length. This length fits me, suits me just fine. I don't mind this at all. I mean, this to me is like perfect, like totally fits. And fits comfortably, fits well. It is really still very warm for yarn. I mean, for a tank, for, knitting. So it totally works as far as keeping you warm. So if I did it a third time, I would probably stop here with another tank and let that be. I like this high neckline. Like I said, this to me means that I can wear this to work, and not with a hoodie, but with a cardigan or something. Totally legit. But yeah, this is actually, it's not that it bothers me. Actually, all I need to really do is just pull it down a little bit. But I've got some kind of, I don't know if it's where your décolletage is, the skin changes or something, but I can tell, and it has to do, and it doesn't even have to do with, well, okay, I'm scatterbrained here. Okay, one thing is, it has to do with your bind off right there, is because it's very, stiff. It's not a stretchy, relaxed knit right there, so it kind of hits you right there on the collarbone. The other thing is, and yes, this is the yarn, but it's not, it's me. The Stellina, if you can kind of see the sparkle in it, I used it in the bottom here. I knew this would never touch my skin, so I was fine with it. I should have paid more attention to this, though, because this is touching my skin. And I know this for a fact, that Stellina stuff drives me crazy. And it's not even, I have a thermal, like, long sleeve, like, to keep you warm shirt that has sparkly thread in it, and that thing drives me crazy. So it's about that filament, that it's almost like Christmas tinsel or whatever. It just drives my skin crazy. So everything else, not a problem. Totally doesn't itch or anything like that. It's just, I know that's what it is. It's just little plasticky, sparkly, little threads. So this is again, it's held double. This one, I did a bunch of little, it was the Golden Girls mini set from Fangirl Fibers, but it came with one full skein. So I held the full skein double with the minis, and I did 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of the minis with this. This was a single ply. I wonder if you can see that right there. Single ply. I think this was probably a Knit Crate, an old Knit Crate subscription maybe. But I held it double with a bunch of minis, and that gray, dark gray with the Stellina was kind of a leftover from another project, so I kind of did it at the beginning, and then I realized I was going to run out of the minis, so I did it again at the end. But there's, I don't know if you can see it or not, there's one mini here, which is like navy blues and grays. There's one mini here that is like purples and black and dark pinks. Then there's another mini here that is more like black and hot pink. Then there's another mini here that is just kind of very multicolored pink and purple and whatever. And then this mini, this stripe is the widest because this mini is where I stopped going all the way around, this little one here. And this one's the one where I started just working on the top. So this mini is mostly blues. Blue, variegation of blue. So that's just why that stripe happens to be the most, because I'm not going all the way around the top. This is just the back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And then so this, this I used for the top again until I ran out of this, and then I had another single ply yarn that looked very, very similar. So as a matter of fact, one of these straps, both of these straps have it, but one of these straps is completely different than the other one that has a little bit of this left and then the rest of it of the other. So it all looks just fine. You can't tell. I think it looks great. It fits so well. But this was, so Jessie May of Jessie May Designs is Filipino. So this was my other yarn contribution, or my stitchy contribution to Stitch for Pride for March. So again, I'm so happy with it. I'm so glad I got it done. That's the other thing. This thing sat. I had worked on it all last year. Took it with me when I went on vacation. Labor Day, I didn't get very much knit on it, but got a few rounds on it. I think I was stuck on, one of these little mini stripes, just the body. I mean, it's a lot because I was doing the tank version, so I was adding inches. Once you split, or not split, but once you cast off and are just doing the front and then the straps, super quick. Who knew, right? But I'm so glad I got this done, and I get to wear it now, and it's at a length that me personally, I'm comfortable with wearing out in public, so I'm so happy with it. But yeah, so that was kind of like my other thing that I was like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna, I've got this thing done, and it just, there's that like endorphins or whatever rush that you get of just like completing a project and being so happy. Like when I first put this on, it's one of those things where you put it on and you just keep looking at it and looking at it and looking at it because you're like, oh my gosh, I made this and it fits and it's so cute, and I made this and it fits and it's so cute, over and over and over again. So yeah, so that's my other finish for Stitch for Pride, and for the month of March, basically. So the other thing I will bring up really quick, it's just kind of a little mini start knitting that I kind of brought out earlier, so I guess I should bring it out again. It's a little start to a sock. It's not much. This is the other thing, like I said, that I take with me to work. So this is like my lunchtime work sock. It is this color here. If you do or don't recognize this, if you've been following along, this is the green that I used for my little knit trees that I made at Christmas. I needed something. I didn't use very much of this yarn, so I needed something else to use. And this is one of the little Golden Girls minis that just, it has a few little speckles in it, but not much. It's mostly looks like bare yarn. So the toe, like the toe has one little green speckle in it. But otherwise, so this was started because I think I mentioned, but if I didn't, I'm going to mention it now. When the March Zoom, Natural World Zoom sale came up, I knew by then I had a problem with my shoulders. So I'm going to put a picture up here. I don't want to mispronounce, but I'm going to say Fanrum sock. But if you notice, it has the little trim, the little leafy pattern at the top. And it just so happens to kind of match the colors of the fabric and thread that I chose for my Natural World sale. So that's basically what I ended up doing. Was I started that sock in a way of being able to participate, or being stitching in solidarity with the others on the Zoom. I just didn't know if I'd be able to, and at the time that I did start that, This was full blown, like killing me, and even doing that was difficult, surprisingly. And I didn't even, back then, I barely had the toe like worked. I don't even think I had the green going yet. But just the weight of this, holding, because you're basically supporting all of this weight, it was a lot. And it seems like such a silly thing to say now, but it was. But that was kind of my little start, because I thought, okay, if I'm going to go through, several of these Zooms and I'm not going to be able to stitch at all. I mean, at that time I thought at all, I need to find something. And I knew that the crochet would have worked. I mean, I could have crocheted. I thought the knitting would work. And I think at the time it was a lot more fiddly too. And it was really just nagging at me quite a bit. So that is it. That is pretty much everything that I've done, finished, worked on, all the good things. Finally, or I'm going to wrap things up a little bit, tell you about my plans for April, in case I don't see you guys for a while. And then that way y'all will have a little bit more from me, and then we'll wrap things up. Okay, so the other thing I kind of forgot to mention, but I thought I would mention really quick, because I did buy the 5 weeks of Ramadan box from Havari Bazaar. I thought I would show you what we have opened so far, the first 3 Fridays. So far, we've received, this was week 1. This is really, really pretty, y'all. This really pretty blue and purple. Sock yarn. So that was from Havari Bazaar. Week 2 was from Abolita Fiber Company, which I love their yarns because they natural dye theirs. So they use natural, whether it's herbs or, organic matter in order to achieve their colors. So they're absolutely gorgeous. And of course you're going to find little bits of this and that. So pretty. So that's the name of that one. Lichen on Bark. And Cormo, this is superwash. The Cormo wool, I was looking it up the other day. Cormo, I think, is Corriedale and Merino, like combined, of hybrid wool. And then week 3, which was just this past Friday, this is Aquarius Make. Real pretty, like kind of a bright, like a raspberry pink, And then there's the information. Really, really, really pretty. So I haven't quite decided what to do. Oh, so in addition to each one, we also got an extra. So with week 1, we received this really nifty tape measure, which these are always really nice. And the little sticker. Oh, got that upside down, I think. There we go. There's the little sticker. Week 2, I was so excited to receive this. This is a stitch holder cord. I'm not going to pull this out, but it's like a rubber tube. So if you are a knitter and like so like when I was knitting this, where the straps attach in the back, when I got to the round where I was just working the front, I had to cast off so many stitches, knit a certain number of stitches for the strap, but then put something in place to hold it, then cast off around the back, then knit a few more stitches for the other strap, and then cast off until I got back around to the front. Well, those 2 spots had to be held with something. And normally what I end up doing is because I'm usually using an interchangeable knitting needle with a cable on it, I leave the cable on those stitches and just put like ends on them so they don't come off. But that's what this is for. So basically you would take this little tube, and this is, it did say, right, 48 inches. So you could use this on like a sweater or a shawl or anything where you needed to hold a large amount of stitches. But it's a tube that basically you just slip that tube through your stitches that you need held, and then it works as like a big cord to basically hold those in place. So this was fantastic because I've always looked at getting one of these, but they were never one of those like one-off, I'm just going to buy one. Like I always thought if I shopped from a store that had them, I would throw it in my cart with other things that I was buying. So I am so happy and so looking forward to this one. So this one was fantastic. And then with Aquarius Make, she sent, in addition, a piece of candy, which is gone, a bag of tea, which was cranberry pomegranate, which I was going to drink, but I kind of completely forgot because I kind of on a whim decided I was going to do this today. So we'll have the tea. It looks really good though. And then we also got these really pretty buttons. Absolutely cute. Oops, and I just threw them out of the thing. We got a set of 3. Just absolutely cute. They have like little flowers. I was trying to take the lid off because maybe that's better. There we go. So yeah, really cute. So buttons. So we have 2 more Fridays, and then we have and then we'll have a 6th package on each. So yeah, I've kind of been just keeping them all right here. If I go back to the vlog, y'all will see more of the of me opening the packages on the Fridays as opposed to seeing it all afterwards. If not, you'll see it when you see it. So in addition to that, I got, and I'm going to try to pull this out if I can. I've got a couple more things I want to talk about. Sorry, guys. It's been a while. I've missed you so much, so I wanted to share. This is another kind of large purchase. Sorry, I got to take a sip of water here. This is one of those purchases that I've been thinking about for a really long time, because it's not a inexpensive purchase to make, but I watch a lot of knitters who might also be yarn dyers and who might also be spinners, and I had dabbled with spinning a little bit, but always hand spinning. I had bought a long time ago a whirl and a drop spindle, and this is my first attempt at spinning, which is fine. I mean, not everybody's a great spinner, and it definitely takes practice. I took a class at a little, we have a maker's, they call it a maker space. It's basically like a commercial building that a nonprofit rents out, and it's basically a co-op where everybody pays a membership fee or a flat fee if they just like one time want to use it or come to take a class or something like that. But they have different spaces for different things, everything from like coding software to yarn crafts to woodworking to metalworking to all kinds of things. So with the idea being that it's a shared space, it's a co-op, your membership fees, if you had a monthly membership or a yearly membership, went into paying for the utilities and rent and whatever, and the use of the equipment, if there was equipment there. Like in the yarn space, in the yarn craft space, actually it wasn't even called that, it was called like it was more broad than that, because it wasn't just yarn. There's mostly yarn people in there, but there was also like a vinyl cutter, and there was also like beading and jewelry type stuff, some other things in there. But that particular space, the yarn craft space, had bins and bins and bins of donated, like people had yarn and roving and all the things you might need, like needles and whatever, but it was meant to stay in that space. So like if you, especially like with the yarn, if you were knitting something and you were borrowing yarn, you were expected to contribute back to the stash that was there. But I did. I took a drop spindle class. So this is my first attempt. It's not great. It's a single ply, of course. But it's uneven, as it should be. But it was my first attempt. I mean, it's really uneven in some places. But I think that has more to do with the fact I didn't get just good twists there. So all of that to say that spinning had been on my mind for a while. It's not something I want to do, I don't think I want to do habitually or regularly or get in the habit of doing on a consistent basis. But it is something that I find interesting, and I think as makers, we all should be more knowledgeable about the products we use and the amount of energy and time it takes in which to make the product that we then take to make the product that we're trying to achieve. So, people I see occasionally, most of these social media circles I hang around aren't these kind of people. But occasionally I see the kind of person that says, why would I buy yarn from you at, $25 a skein, let's say, when I can go down to Michael's or Joann's or wherever, Walmart, and buy the same amount of yarn for, $6, $8, $10, half the price. Why would I do that? This is why, because a lot of us need to know that it takes someone shearing the sheep and combing the wool and rolling it into bats or roving or rologs or whatever, to be then spun into single ply, then twisted into double ply or four ply or whatever, then dyed into, and all of those steps take a person, they take time, they take energy. And once you understand that process is a process for a person, you are so much more willing or understanding or sympathetic or empathetic or able to recognize that the product that you're buying from that hand dyer is worth the extra money, because that takes work, y'all. It takes work. So all of that to say that I've had several bats for a while. I've got this one still that has barely been, this is all I spun off. It's a huge thing. I'm not gonna pull it down because I'll probably knock everything down over there because it's been buried under some stuff. I've got this one. I've got another one that's like purple and pink and green. And I think I got a third one somewhere too. Maybe not. Maybe those are the only two I've got. No, I think there is a third one over there. That might be like a darker, like almost like this, like dark blue. So all that to say, I really want to learn this. I really want to learn how to do this. But this, especially now in the age of the shoulder, this was killing me then. This is really going to kill me, y'all. So, because this takes patience. This takes agility, a sense of whatever that I don't have, my brain, and especially as I'm getting older. Yeah, this is a lot. So we bought an electric spinning wheel, but this is a tiny one. So like I said, I've been thinking about this for like this is years ago. I'm talking pre-COVID. So I've been thinking about this for a while. So what it comes with are 3 bobbins, which these 2 are like not assembled, but you know, they're there. The 3rd one is actually on the spinning wheel. And this is the spinning wheel. It's so tiny. So yeah, so I bought this, and it's just, you plug it in, little electric, you know. It's not like the spinning wheels where you have a pedal or anything like that. It's all, you know. I still gotta learn how to use it. I've gone through the company that makes this, Electric Eel, has tutorials on their website, but also like if you follow companies like Sweet Georgia, they did a really good, I'm not saying they were the ones that influenced me to get this, but it was rather convenient that they did a across the board kind of like, here are all the current electric spinners on the market, and this is kind of what we think of each one for the price. They released that about the time that I had just gotten this. So actually I haven't really watched it, but if you're interested, if you're in the market, you want to go watch it. But I've seen a lot of really good reviews, and this is the 2nd generation one, the Nano 2. So that was the deal. Some of the people that I follow that do spin, the improvements that were made from the original Nano were good things were said about the improvements that were made. So yeah, very, very simple. Just a couple of little on-off switches and on-off switch, or actually it's not on-off. It's so you. And I'm not going to get into all this because most of y'all don't care about this, but basically you spin your yarn one direction and then you ply it the opposite direction. So you get the double, when you get 2 spun pieces of yarn, you want them to be plied together the opposite direction so that the twist, you know, is a good twist. But this is a speed knob, and then, yeah, then just the tensioner for the bobbin. But yeah, like I said, it was not an inexpensive purchase. It was definitely something that I had to think long and hard about before getting. But the timing was kind of right. I was really wanting to get back into it. And honestly, I did. I got it about... It was kind of funny how the timing of getting it was also about the time that my arm gave out. And I was like, okay, is this something I want to try to make, you know, because I can't do all the other things I want to do because my shoulder hurts, you know. So, yeah. So, this is not going to be a spinning channel unless it turns out to be something that I truly enjoy. But from time to time, I might share my spinning with you. So that was one other thing. Okay, so final plans. This is April. Back to this for a minute. I've done 3 of my 4. The action prompt. So this month, Dee has us learning all about drag, because obviously it's in the news. It's important. I have friends who don't live here anymore, but who absolutely loved going. There's a bar down in Dallas called Sue Ellen's. If you're familiar, you know what it's all about. But they always did drag shows. So I hope that Sue Ellen's is still doing their thing. But the action, so all the learning was about learning about drag, learning about how it's always been a thing. Dr. Christie shared a interesting open-sourced book, which is rather long. I wasn't prepared for the 300 pages it was, but I did start to read it, about how transgender has always been a thing, even back to medieval time period. But more specifically, drag in particular. Drag's always been around. when theater first began in ancient cultures and more modern cultures, women weren't allowed to perform. So who do you think performed the women's roles in theater? Shakespeare, the time of Queen Elizabeth, notorious. Only men participated in theater. So it's an important lesson, but I think it's a lesson that's being lost on the folks that are just so ridiculously adamant about being opposed to this kind of thing, because I feel like, okay, political statement coming. I feel like the people that are fighting against drag didn't pay attention enough and aren't educated enough to be making the decisions that legislatively that they're making, and ironically are also taking away the education of the students who need to know about these things in order to understand why them legislating it is nonsense. Okay, done. So anyway, so April was all about drag. So the action portion, I was getting all this to say. The action portion was, or is, I've still got the rest of April. April's not over yet. To either find a performer and support them, go see them. And it just so happened that my former university, North Texas, up here in Denton, had drag night at the, I don't know what they call it now. It used to be the student center, the student, the student center before, but it's the hall where all of the like social events occur or whatever. But they had drag night the other night. It was just a bad night to go. I mean, it's never a bad night for drag, but it was just not a convenient night to go for me personally. I don't know that they'll do another one before the month is up. Maybe they will, maybe they won't, but I really was like, that was like my first opportunity and I kind of blew it. But if not, I will definitely find someone to support. I know there are several folks on TikTok that I absolutely love, the stuff that they do. So I may go out and see if I can find something more local through social media and do it that way. So I also need to see who performed at the student center to see if they are if they still do if they're going to be doing other things throughout the month, because maybe I can find something else to go support them with. So in saying all that, to say that the Stitchy prompt was the most colorful whip. So, when it comes to knitting, it's not that I don't have colorful, I'm always doing colorful things, but I don't really have anything that I'm currently working on other than my blanket. So, in addition to something else that I'll mention here in a minute, that may be my whip, my yarn whip for the month, because it is definitely the most colorful thing I am crocheting / knitting on. But the other one that I think I'm going to try to get started here soon, if I can, if you follow or have any interest in following crafty people other than just cross stitchers on YouTube, I would recommend Fiber Hustle. They are adorable. They're a couple, Chip and Aaron. Chip is a quilter, sewist person. Aaron is the knitter, crocheter person. And they are just absolutely hysterical. Their YouTube presence, their showmanship is just like, for all of us to be like that is absolutely amazing. But they just recently opened a store, Fiber Hustle. Chip makes quilted sewn project bags to like carry your knitting in and that kind of thing. And I'm sure he's going to do some other things as time goes on, probably like either quilting projects or patterns or maybe, I don't know, fabric bundles or something. But for right now, he's a sewer, so most of his stuff is sewed objects for sale. Erin, on the other hand, though, being the knitter, also started dyeing yarn. And this is not just any yarn. So, if you follow Fiber Hustle on Instagram, you will see that Erin likes to dye yarn, and his inspiration is always albums, music, vinyl albums that he owns that he will listen to while dyeing yarn, and the color inspiration is always the album cover. So this one got to me. I mean, look at all that. Just look. That's just like every single color that you can think of is in this yarn. The name, so this is 80/20 superwash merino and nylon, 450 yards fingering weight. The name of the color is called Watershed. So that is the single that was released off of the album from the Indigo Girls. And I'll pop the album cover right there. So when I saw him dye this, I was like, gimme. So I'm so glad he put this up in the shop. Because when they first opened their shop, he had some of his albums, and it's like all over the place with his albums. So it's not like very genre specific. Like, he doesn't just listen to folk music or Americana or whatever. I mean, he's got like, I think he's got like Rat or Poison or somebody, and a Def Leppard or somebody in there. He just dyed up, or just did a reel. He was dyeing up one that's based off of an Eddie Money album. I mean, just all over the place with his. So, but yeah, he posted a picture of this. And when the shop opened, I was like, aw. And I thought maybe what had happened, or not what had happened, but I thought maybe what the situation was. Either there were only so many he had dyed and they had sold out already, which, come on, do you blame him? Or he had only dyed like a couple and he was going to use them, like he was going to, knit something with them. So I thought, okay, well, maybe it was or the album, the colorway meant so much to him that, or he had friends that wanted him first, and he's like, yeah, I'll sell them to you first, So but then I just kept, every once in a while, I'd go out and look, and then they posted one of their latest one of their latest YouTube episodes, and he said it was going up in the shop, and I'm like, gotta get my hands on it. So yeah, I am so happy. So if I get started on it, this may actually be my most colorful whip. Oh, and I'll post a picture up here too. The shawl I think I'm going to do, if this works out. See, this is all contingent on this being the shawl that I knit with it, because this is the Boneyard by Stephen West. It was one of his very first shawls. It's absolutely gorgeous, but you noticed, well, maybe you can or can't tell in the picture, the detail of the shawl is in the stitches, because it's just garter and stockinette repeats. So the detail is in the garter lines. This yarn may be too busy that you lose that. So I'm going to see if, I'm going to do a little swatch, basically, is what I'm going to do. And see if that yarn the texture of the stitches in the pattern still come out in a yarn that is that busy, because there's a lot going on with that yarn. So if not, then basically my blanket will be my fallback for now, because it is definitely the most colorful thing I'm knitting, crocheting on. But with the stitching portion, the actual cross stitch portion, I am going to pull out with all the DMC falling. This is definitely my most colorful stitching whip that I have. It was started about this time last year, and the designer just so happened to release a floss tube just this weekend talking about how this was the first anniversary of this very whip. And the whip I am referring to is There's a Priscilla Dawes by Kansas City Girl in Colorado World, Julie. So I started this on a 36 count Fortnite Fabrics called Alfred. And yes, this is like, she even mentions in her floss tube, I think she said there are 36 or 38 color. I mean, seriously, y'all. I mean, seriously. But she said the third, or the latest version she's doing, she didn't say she had to, but she said she ended up dropping like 3 or 4 of the colors. I don't know, either to make it work or something. I can't remember what she said, but anyway. So yeah, there's over 30 colors in this. And here is my little start right in the center. So that's that little flower basket right in the center, and that's one of the birds. And that is as far as I got. And there's a hashtag. There's only a few things out there under it, but called Thursdays. So that is going to be my plan. I'm probably not going to stitch on this just a whole lot. Obviously, it's a big piece. I don't know if I'm going to put it in a hoop or not. I may just try. I think I've been stitching it in hand this whole time, so I think I may try to continue doing that and see if that works for me while I'm still trying to figure things out with my arm. But yeah, this is my most colorful whip by far. Hands down. No questions asked. And yeah, I'm happy. I'm happy to stitch on this for a little while. It needs some love. So yeah, so that is it. That is everything. That is all the things. I'm looking at this latest segment. If I get in, if this ends up being less than 2 hours, and I'm talking to my future self here, if this ends up being less than 2 hours, I'm going to be shocked, even after editing, because, hey, I missed you guys. What can I say? So that's it, everybody. Welcome to April. Whee! Take care of yourselves. Take care of one another. Look out for each other. Stand up for each other when you can, when you have the ability to do so. It's a mess right now. I mean, every time I think things are getting better, then, you know, 2 steps forward, 1 step back. Hopefully we're progressing, not regressing, but there are definitely days where it's a lot. So I hope you're doing well, and I hope that the spring brings renewal and life and all the good things for you, even if it just means a little bit of sunshine, a little bit of pleasant temperatures, a little bit of a break from the grind, to give yourself a moment of you know, relaxation and a little bit of stitchy times. So take care, and I will see y'all around for sure. Just be patient. Talk to you soon. Bye.